Right, Dries, are you there?
I am here, Craig.
Okay, we're going to get going. Eloise is managing everything in the background, so there's still quite a few people to come in, but let's get going slowly. Let's just get some of the general admin out of the way. Let me just refresh my head on how to do everything here. Share screen. Right, can I just confirm with everybody, you can see the share screen, Tyres and their contribution.
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we can.
Right, great. Let's get going. Okay, so first of all, welcome everybody. We've had a phenomenal acknowledgement of the session. Just in very brief, it's an information session. We do this either every month or every second month as we can fit it in where and when we can, and we try and choose an interesting subject matter. So thank you for attending this particular session. As you can see, is Tyres and their contribution, crash case studies. Right, so just some quick acknowledgement notices and housekeeping. The POPI Act and others have all been adhered to. Everything that you're going to see and hear here is by agreement and allowed to. Eloise is online with us, so if there's any problems, please email her or phone her very quickly. Session is being recorded. Please keep your cameras off. Please keep yourself muted. Please ask any questions via the questions panel or raise your hand. We will come to the questions session through as we go along. Right, so very quickly, the intention of this session is to provide insight to the laws, the specifications of tyres, brief hierarchical insight to the real-world case studies to highlight the complexities, the details and importance and thoroughness of the entire case considerations. These considerations are not only for crash investigators, however, are important directly and indirect highlights to all parties involved in the transport realm. So you don't necessarily need to be a tyre expert or a specific investigator. If you deal with any issues of the tyre, even if you work in the OHS field and you oversee safety, tyres is always a critical issue. Right, these are bi-monthly information sessions. We either do it once a month or every second month as we can. Thank you to Tyres for once again accrediting the session for CPD for their members. And most importantly, special thank you to Dries. Dries is online with us. Dries is from Bridgestone. We will be chatting with Dries in detail once we've been through the case studies. So let's quickly get into it. Let's get going. So we can only speak from our behalf. So from 2020 to literally this month, we've dealt with 4 very specific tyre delamination cases, and we've dealt with 61 particular tyre issue cases. There are quite a few more of the cases that we deal with that are also indirectly tyre related, but in our particular data, these are very specific tyre-related cases. As you will hear just now from Dries, Dries deals with a massive volume of these cases. So there's an example for you just very briefly of some of the actual cases that we deal with. These are typical kinds of images that would be sent to us and that we would be asked questions about. Would this tyre have an effect on the crash? In other words, is it related to the crash? Has the vehicle lost control because of this tyre? Is this tyre illegal? So let's go quickly then through 4 case studies for you. So the first one, these are the basic parameters. In this particular case, there were 6 fatal. It was a culpable homicide case, happened in March 2012, happened in KZN, just outside Pietermaritzburg. There's 2 vehicles involved, a 3 Series BMW and a Mahindra Scorpio. So very basically, the BMW was traveling downhill, entering a right-hand bend, experienced issues with the left rear tire, caused a loss of control of the vehicle, and this vehicle subsequently collided with the Mahindra that was traveling in the opposite direction. So there's the location for those of you that know Pietermaritzburg. It's just on the outskirts of Pietermaritzburg. That's a close-up of the particular corner. The BMW was coming from the top of your screen down to the bottom, and the Mahindra in the opposite direction. So that's the particular evidence that we collected. If you can see my mouse pointer moving around the screen, that line of evidence across the road there is the particular evidence that relates to the issue of the wheels and the tires. The bottom image is just a close-up of that. Right, so there is the two vehicles that were involved in this particular crash. You can see the BMW was split completely in two, and the Mahindra suffered very, very serious damages. That's the BMW actually on the scene as it was in two pieces, and you can see the Mahindra in the background. So in the photograph on the right-hand side, you will see that there are all these staggered little gouge marks on the road, and on the left-hand photograph is just a close-up of that. What that is basically is the tire has moved off of the rim as the vehicle's in loss of control. The rim is still rotating, and it's making these gouge marks progressively along the road following the path of movement of the vehicle. And so that is the left rear rim, and that is the left rear tire. So you can see the damage on the edge of the rim corresponds with the marks on the road. What's notable here is the tire on the outside at face value looks like it's fine, looks like it's in good condition. Remember, what we're talking about is the issue of tires here. There's just an alternative perspective view of the particular rim that made those marks on the road. So now we come to the tire. Top left photograph, you can see there's a plug. That was what we found. It's not uncommon to find this. When you look on the inside of the tire, there's the plug there. As Dries will explain to you a bit later, it's not ideal, but we do know this happens. In the bottom photograph, you can see besides that plug, we also had a nail sticking through here. It was actually a pop rivet, not a nail. And you can see these shards of the rubber on the inside. What is of particular importance here is, in this particular case, if you looked at this tire on the outside, it looked like there was nothing wrong with it. So when you look at your fleet vehicles, your maintenance, your drivers are looking at the vehicles. If you look at your own tires, they may look fine on the outside, but look what we see on the inside. Massive amount of rubber that's worn off the inside edge, and this is because this tire was at a stage run while it was underinflated. In other words, in layman's terms, flat. Don't do that. This is why you will hear later on, if you've had a flat tire, technically, if you drive on it, you should change it. All right, second case study, 6 fatal. This was a crash in May 2009, Horns Neck Road, Gauteng. 2 vehicles involved, a Honda Ballard, 4 female children killed, and a VW Golf, 2 males. Very basic synopsis is the Honda was traveling with the mother who was wearing a seatbelt, and that all 4 daughters no seatbelts. The mother survived, all 4 daughters died. The VW Golf, 2 occupants, driver and front-seated passenger, both no seatbelts, both passed away. So in this particular case, the issue here is an unusual case. It's an emergency spare that was on the right rear of the Golf, and this caused the Golf to lose control. So for those of you that know where this road is, it's a notorious road and just outside the Pretoria area. And so again, in very brief synopsis, there was a whole lot of evidence that was on the road that showed where the actual Golf lost control across the road. So the green vehicle represents the Golf, and the white vehicle in the top right photograph represents the Golf going into the path of the Honda, colliding with the Honda. And the bottom diagram, just a little bit of a more graphic representation of the evidence in the scene. In a nutshell for you, the top 2 photographs being the Golf, catastrophic damages as you can see, and the Honda itself as well, catastrophic damages. So this is where it gets interesting. This is one of these Mari biscuit spares that we see a lot of the vehicles fitted with nowadays. Again, if you look at that at face value, it looks fine. The average person would look at that and say it's fine. This is cause for concern because this sits in the wheel well of your car and is never used, never checked. Top left photograph, you can see that is the original wheel that was changed. We tested that and we found that there was a puncture, and that was the obvious reason why it was changed. Top right photograph just being an alternative view of the spare. What was of major concern here was look at the date of this. This was 1994, 4th month 1994. That's how old that spare was. This particular spare was underinflated. It was already crumbling. The rubber was dry. It was a massive problem. It led to that loss of control of the VW Golf. And so this particular tire was the major key factor in this particular crash. All right, third case study. Single commercial vehicle loss of control, write-off, multiple vehicles and property damaged. This was a sudden deflation, what we call in generic terms, a sudden deflation of the front left steer wheel on this particular commercial vehicle. It was on the N12 Gauteng. Various vehicles were parked that were struck. The vehicle was traveling from the right to the left. It's a relatively flat, relatively straight, very good condition road. So in this particular case, what was of huge importance, which we often have a problem with, is the particular section of tread belt was left on the scene. Nobody recovered it. And this became an issue later on when the question was raised as to, did this tire actually fail? What tire was it? Why did it fail? So some of the scene evidence, these are things you need to look for very, very carefully on a scene and are often missed and not recorded, but you will often see flat tire evidence. Parts of the tire you can see very carefully going away from you in the top left photograph, the tire scrub marks, and then somewhat clearer on the concrete, you can see the transfer marks on the concrete. This was the particular piece of the casing. Of the tread belt. So that's on the left-hand side, it's the top of it, and on the right-hand side, it's the underside. What the problem was in this particular case, and I'm sure Dries will touch on this a bit later with you, is that we only had the tread belt itself. We did not have the casing that this came from. In other words, in layman's terms, the rest of the wheel and tire. So this was analyzed. We looked at various aspects of it, the type of tire, the specifications, what caused this, and we were eventually able to determine a very clear puncture through this where we could see there was actually rusting on the inside. And although we couldn't be conclusive on this, it was a very strong balance of probabilities that this tire had been damaged or punctured somewhere previously, and it had literally led to the subsequent failure of this particular tire. All right, the last case study, similarly, this is a single vehicle commercial that lost control. It's a complete write-off, major property damages, etc. And very fortunately, this case didn't lead to any serious injuries or death, but you will see in this case the vehicle went, contrary to the other one you just saw, this one went across the freeway into the oncoming traffic and could have caused catastrophic problems. So you can see where the vehicle was originally traveling in the left-hand lanes, going out of Durban, and the vehicle left in the road and went through the center median to the right-hand side, and you can see in the distance where it ended up going through the property wall. That's the particular vehicle itself, and you can see there's the front right-hand tire that was in question. So the tire itself was still attached to the rim and on the vehicle as it was recovered and taken back. But when we went back and asked for the particular, the rest of the tire, nobody knew where it was. And when we went back to go do the scene inspection, there we located it and found it. That's, as we know in public layman's terms, the crocodile. We were able to then do very detailed analysis on that because we had both the crocodile as well, the tread belt section, as well as the original tires. You can see we could match it and prove it was from the same. We were able to look at it inside, outside. We were able to determine there was various holes. We looked at the issue of where it had been working, and we were able to determine certain factors from that. So in essence, you can see on the left-hand photograph, there was one particular hole that was of interest to us. It had gone right through. We could see there was movement around that hole on the inside. We could see there was corresponding rust. And at the end of the day, we were able to, on a very strong balance of probabilities, determine that this had delaminated from previous hole through it, which had not been picked up, and it had subsequently led to a complete delamination. All right. So in very quick brief for you, that was your 4 case studies. Very common things that we deal with, very common problems. Dries, we're going to bring you in at this point. and we're going to knuckle down to some questions. And at this stage, I'm going to pose a couple of questions to you, but we're going to also open the floor at the same time as well. While we're going through these questions, if anyone has questions, please raise your hand or ask questions. Let's get going. So, Dries, first of all, first question to you. The National Road Traffic Act 212 is the act that we all know that deals with tyres. My question to you is that act valid? Is it detailed enough? Does it need to be amended? Can we rely on it?
Craig, yes, from my side, it's still valid, although we might need to have a revision on it. It reads like, I think all regulations, it reads a bit difficult. As we know, in some of our trainings, we've seen that even some of our officers have trouble reading the regulation itself. But yeah, it's still valid as we speak.
So can I ask in relation to that, and this is something that we found very often that comes up within the insurance industry, is that actual understanding of that act. Can I ask you to clarify from an OEM manufacturer, and by the way, I should have said this from the outset, my apologies, Dries is the field engineer for Bridgestone and has extensive experience. Dries, just as a matter of interest, how long have you been operating in your game?
Craig, yeah, at Bridgestone, 16 years now in total, mechanical and truck and tires, almost 30 years in total.
Well, we'll then count you as a tire. All right. So coming back to the act then. So, Dries, the act is written there and it's in law. But am I correct in understanding or asking you for clarity on that? That act relies on what the manufacturer tells it. In other words, the act doesn't say, well, the tire must be built like this and it must be built like that because they are engineers. The act relies on what the engineers that build the tires tell them. Is that correct?
That is correct, Craig. So from a manufacturer's point of view, we've got international regulations, specifications, drawings, recipes that we need to adhere to. So again, we need to follow certain standards, and there's basically 4 different standards in the world. Of course, the world is split in 4, as you know. So we've got Americas, we've got European standards, we've got the Asian or Japanese standards as well. Just referring to quickly ETRTO, the JATMA or JATMA, that's the Japanese Association of Tire Manufacturers. So we have to build the tires according to those specifications, load ratings, etc. Yes.
Great. And in relation to that, in South Africa, and we see I've listed there's a couple of reference documents, SANS 1550, VC 805, SABS LP, and in particular, in general, we also follow the ECE standards, the European specification standards. All of those documents, again, may need to be looked at, and some of the language, but they are all valid, they're all relevant. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So basically, all of our SANS documents, and just I haven't read through all of them, but they are basically based on the ECE documents. If you look at commercial vehicles, the last 2 case studies you've mentioned, that relates to ECE 30, also ECE 50. So, and then of course in Europe they've got the newest one. It's a R117-02. That's just relating to wet grip, noise, etc. That's not particularly applied here in South Africa.
100%. So let's move on a bit then, Dries, and I'm sure we'll come back to these issues of the Act and all the specifications as we go along. But we know Bridgestone is quite proactive, along with the other manufacturers as well. But Bridgestone has, in the past, done quite a few of these general public tests where they literally go out to some of the shopping centers and they test the people's tires voluntarily. It seems to be, and a lot of the research worldwide shows that in general, the public doesn't look after their tires well enough. In particular, we tend to often drive with our tires underinflated. Some comments to that effect?
Yes, yeah, we've got massive data going back like 15, 20 years back where, like you say, we do bi-yearly type of interventions, what we call them, where we free of charge just go and survey these vehicles, give the guy a pamphlet, and the main offender there is the underinflation of tires. And that's more normally sedans, your normal passenger type of vehicles, minibus taxis, where the tires are not inflated to the OEM specification that's basically available inside the dorsal of your vehicle.
So let's just break that down in layman's terms so that everybody that's in attendance may not be engineers and understand all those finer nuances. To put that in simple layman's terms, if it is bad for a tire to be underinflated because that underinflation causes the tire to flex or to move. It creates heat, and ultimately that causes the tire to fail or can cause it to fail. Is that a good synopsis?
That is correct, Craig. So basically, tires are manufactured, or the vulcanization process. That's basically, in layman's terms, where we put the tire or the tire parts inside an oven and we bake it. That's very, very layman. So that's vulcanization. That happens around about 180 to 200 degrees Celsius. So if the tire is underinflated, heat builds up because of the flexing, and reaching that point, the tire parts or components start to basically come loose, and they lose tact, and that's where you find that crumble that you saw in that first case study of yours.
100%. So the takeaway from that, if anything, right at the outset of us looking at these issues of tires is we need to put more emphasis on checking tire pressures and maintaining tire pressures all the time. Fair comment?
Correct. 100%, yeah.
So to anybody that's attending from the insurance industry, from OHS, from fleets, you would say then the big issue is check your tires more regularly. I know you and I in brief chatting, as per the next point, you said checking tire pressures at least every second week. You mentioned 30 PSI pressure loss over every give or take 14 days. Give us a little bit of comment on that.
Yeah, so yeah, we've basically through studies, etc., we've determined, and this information is available on the internet as well. Google is your friend, of course. 30 psi pressure loss over a month, over a month's time. So that you're looking at 200 kPa or 2 bar pressure loss over a month's period, because of a tire is not a 100% sealed a vessel. Of course, a tire is a vessel, a pressure vessel. The air molecules, they do still migrate through the rubber within any rubber or any tire, and that will cause that pressure loss. Of course, driving, building heat, and then cooling down, that's also got an effect on the migration of all of these molecules. And yeah, you can do the test yourself just by putting a tire outside and leaving it there. You'll find pressure loss. You muted, Craig.
Okay, so let's just say this as well. We can also say for everyone here as well that, as you said, that 180 to 280 degrees, more or less, where they build the tire. When you're driving along on a very hot tar road for a long distance and your tire is slightly underinflated, you can very easily exceed those temperatures. So if you want to put it in real simple layman's terms, you're almost starting to kind of melt or soften the tire, if you want to put it in layman terms.
That is basically correct, yeah. And just to get to that point is, and where we see these incidents where a tire fails, I don't like the word burst, where the tire fails, is 5 kilometers after the person has stopped at a fueling station, because he gets there, the tire is now hot because of driving and on your caravan, for instance, and the pressure is now 300 kPa. He tells the attendant, no, the pressure must be 220, and the attendant deflates the tire. That's the worst thing you can ever do to a tire, is when it's hot, deflate it. Do not do it. If a tire is 300 kPa instead of 200 after driving, leave it as it is. It will cool down and get back to pressure. Never deflate. You can inflate, yes, but never deflate.
So what you're telling us in layman's terms is rather have the tire a little bit too hard than too soft.
Yeah, before taking off on your holiday, Craig, make sure your tire pressures are correct. That's basically what I'm telling, or what I'm saying. After you drive from here to, for instance, Kroonstad, your tires will be hot. You're looking at an increase of about 50 to 100 kPa, more or less, depending on the road conditions, etc. And when you then get there, your tires, the heat inside it, or the air pressure inside the tire will be hot because of the tire getting hot. And now you deflate, and you're actually causing the tire to be under the pressure that it should be. So you're losing volume. A tire, or the load is carried by the inflation pressure, not by the tire. Just putting it there.
Okay, so let's also just touch on that, Dries, a little bit more in terms of, we're talking about tires in general here, but let's just talk specifically about the commercial tire industry. I mean, here we're talking about very big, very powerful, strong tires that carry massive loads. I mean, we know total loads up to 56 tons. So would it be fair to say that checking tires and pressures on those vehicles is yeah, I mean, I don't want to say one is more important than the other, but you could almost say it's more important than the other. The reason being is if one of those vehicles crashes, we know that they normally cause major chaos.
Yeah, it's like a runaway train. Trying to stop 54 tons, and now you've got a failed tire or blown out tire because of a underinflation, or even a pressure loss due to a nail or a bolt, like I personally experienced over the past couple of months. That is the most important thing, is to check the tire pressures. And even on dual tires on your commercial vehicles, dual tire pressures needs to be checked, because that'll not checking them will again relate to irregular wear, uneven wear, and all sorts. But yeah, that's going into deep almost. Yeah.
Okay. Well, seeing as you brought it up, let's touch on that issue exactly as you have. And it's something you've mentioned previously, and you've touched on it here, the issue of why would a tire go flat? And I think in my conversation with you, which is important to bring up to everyone here, is we see a lot of potholes on the road. We see a lot of debris on the road. So our private vehicles, our work vehicles, and the commercial truck industry should be even more attuned to the issue of tires because of these potholes and debris. Your comments on that?
What we've seen is a lot of debris, especially bolts, nails, shards of metal, and I'm not talking about these guys that throw stuff in the road to cause you to stop. Of course, that's a different story. But that's due to older type of vehicles, mechanical negligence where bolts fall off vehicles, scrap vehicles or scrap carrying vehicles that's not tied down properly. That scrap is falling off. After rains, you find some of these debris washing into the roadway instead of it staying inside the drainage area. So we find a lot of those, and And of course, again, drivers need to, at their safety stops, at their customers' yards, just have a quick look around. Again, there's 26, sometimes less tires. Just quickly have a look, see if there's any nails or things protruding. Catch it early before you then possibly cause an accident with one of those things rupturing. You muted again.
My apologies. So what's our takeaway again from this? Our takeaway from this would be drivers, both us, fleets should inspect tires more. And interestingly, a point that you've brought up, which may not be commonly known, is during wet weather, or if there has recently been rain, be particularly aware of what's on the road and perhaps check your tires slightly more frequently.
Yes, because again, on that wet weather, water and rubber, it just makes the tire cut so much easier. You can do the test yourself at home with your normal survival pocket knife. Try and cut a piece of rubber without water and cut it with water, and you'll see the difference. So it's just so much easier to pick up punctures, cuts, etc. in wet weather. And of course, checking tires. It's one of the most neglected things out there from my point of view, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that as well. We see, we'll often talk to people and they'll say, yeah, I did check my tires, but they didn't physically just drop down on one knee and look inside. They're just purely looking at the outside side wall of it. So agreed. Dries, let's move on. We want to just touch on this issue of retreads. Retreads not on, that's meant to read steer wheels, and preferably not on the drive wheels. Just touch on this issue for us. Are retreads allowed on our normal day-to-day vehicles, or is it only commercial vehicles, and where should they be used?
Greg, we've seen from a manufacturer's point of view and marketing and sales on tire side, we've seen that retreading on passenger vehicles or consumer vehicles has basically stopped. There might be one or two importers of them for consumer vehicles or passenger vehicles. Years back, you used to buy those retreaded tires somewhere at a Macro or even at your local Checkers. That stopped. So basically on your commercial vehicles, your larger vehicles, retreads are not allowed on your steer axles. Although the regulations or the act doesn't say that, it is, how can I say, it's common that it's not allowed there. It's just a safety risk. Yes, you can fit them on your drive axle tires. Some customers prefer not to fit them there. Again, the perception is there that the retread comes loose, and it's a poor manufactured retread, and it hits the fuel tank and it damages the truck tractor. But yeah, again, retreads the same as new tires. The tread will come off when maintenance is not correct.
100%. Thank you for that. So let's just touch on the issue then of reputable or good quality tires on steel wheels or in general. So one of the issues that has been raised is, I mean, obviously we do see in the marketplace there's a lot of, how do we phrase this politely, not so well known or not such good quality tires. We understand the market is tight, and we understand sometimes a transporter would need to use these tires. But in relation to this, I know from your and from our conversation, you also agreed stick to the known brands, the quality brands on the very important positions. And if you are going to use lesser, so to say, quality tires, put those on the alternative positions. Is that fair?
Yes. It's always not. You can't subscribe or tell the fleet owner or the customer what he should fit. I mean, you are not you're not in charge of his account or his money. Sometimes it's difficult out there. We've seen it. We see it daily. But at least try with your steer axle tires, try and stick with a well-known brand. There's so many brands out there, Craig. I think worldwide we're looking at almost, 2,800 different brands of tires out there. And they make their way into South Africa by hook or by crook, and all of them are ECE certified. But stick to the well-known brands where at least you know if there's a problem, you can pick up the phone and you can phone somebody that can sort it out for you or come and check. That's my take on it.
I'm glad you bring that up because for the attendees here, I just want to verify, and I can tell you this from our dealings with the tire industry heavily, that when you deal with the reputable brands, and I'll say it openly, Bridgestone, Dunlop, Continental, Michelin, the very good brands, you will get that backup service where if there is an issue or a query with that tire, you can take it to them and they will legitimately do the proper testing and they will check it for you. Whereas I can also tell you from personal experience, some of these other brands, they are brought in under some company's name and you never get the service or the backup or the checking for that as well. Just on that point, Dries, Bridgestone, very good customer service like that. You guys, if we bring you a Bridgestone tire that we say there's a problem with, you will check it?
Yes. If it's a Bridgestone, Firestone manufactured product, even our third-tier product, which is only basically available in Europe, but it does make its way here now and again. It's our Dayton product. Of course, we will look at it. We'll give you a report and we'll sort out what needs to be sorted out, Greg.
Great stuff. Right, let's move on then. Something that a lot of people have never even seen or even aware of is an FRT tire. I say this openly without mentioning the name of the client or the incident, but I have had a crash where the steer tire was an FRT tire and it should not have been on the steer tire, and this vehicle crashed and somebody died. So FRT stands for free rolling tire. Dries, I'm going to ask you to step in here and just give us a little bit of insight to this.
All right. So even on our side, Craig, on Bridgestone side, we've got patterns that the same pattern is a steer tire and can also be used as a trailer tire, of course. And then in the same pattern, we've got one that's marked FRT. That's a free rolling tire, and that should only be fitted to the trailer. So customers must be very aware that they should look at the sidewall and see the markings on the sidewall of the tire before fitting it to their vehicles. The difference here is that the free rolling tire, although the load capacity and all of that is exactly the same as the other ones, the strength, etc., there's a slight difference in the bead construction. So the tire itself will be a little bit lighter. And of course, your bead construction, that's the part that fits onto the flange of your rim to secure basically the whole container. That's a little bit lighter and only meant to fit on your trailer. Because your trailer, it doesn't have all those lateral forces that you'll get onto or on your steer axle. That's the main difference here, Craig.
Great stuff. So as a reminder to everybody, an FRT tire should not be on your steer axles, and it is a marked tire. It will say FRT on it somewhere. Dries, let's move along. The regrooving of tires versus retreading. The regrooving where a tool is actually used to cut into the tire. On light motor vehicles, legal, illegal, or is it per the tire? A little bit of insight on that?
All right. So looking at your regulation, I don't have it open in front of me, but your regulation 212 states that regrooving can only be done on a tire with a rim diameter larger than 430 millimeters. So that's basically any tire that's larger than 17 inches on rim. So your rim size 17 inches and up. That'll basically only commercial tires or only commercial vehicles. So any light passenger taxi or minibus taxi tire that is regrooved is illegal. It must say regroovable on the tire itself as well. That's part of our regulations or our standards that we build the tires to. That's regrooving, and I'm glad you said specific tool that's being used. Of course, you get the guys with the sharp knife under the tree, cutting the grooves and polishing them up. Please do not buy those tires. Rather go into a shop, a reputable shop, and ask for a second-hand or a used tire and get it there for a bit cheaper. And then regroove is where we take a tool and we use a tool, trained operators that with a specific manual by each product, we regroove or cut the new treads into the tires. Retreads, of course, we buff the surface of the casing and we apply a new cold rubber onto it through a vulcanization process, and you get a retreaded tire then.
Great stuff. So the takeaway from that for everyone to remember, the key issue is regrooving at the end of the day can only be done on a tire that is labeled regrooving. That's the key thing. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, I used to work for many years on two of the rally teams, and we used to cut some of our race tires. It's not an easy task. Dries, let's touch quickly on plugs. That's a very common thing we see here. Internal plugs, external plugs, what's better? Are they illegal? Should they be done?
All right. So I think it was your second case you handled, or the first one, which had that emergency, what we call a snot plug. So it's like a very sticky rope that they plug into the tire. That's an emergency only plug. It shouldn't be there for the rest of the tire's life, and preferably if you do that, move that tire to the back of the vehicle. It will take a little bit more time to change over the tires, but just for safety's sake, put it on the back, and then when you get to the first reputable shop, have that snot rope or plug removed and replaced with a mushroom type plug. So a mushroom type plug is a well-known and basically the best type of plug that you can get. It seals from the inside as well. It seals, and it also covers the hole that was made through the steel cords.
100%. So the takeaway there for everyone is, guys, rather don't plug the tire. If you are going to plug the tire, it's purely for emergency purposes. Rather take the tire in and go and get it done properly or replace it. I'll just remind everyone to please put your cameras off. Right, Dries, moving on, wheel alignment. Let's touch on wheel alignment. What is the effect of that? Why is it important? What does it have to do with tires and also on commercial vehicles?
All right, so wheel alignment, of course, if the wheel alignment is out, it will eat away at one of the most expensive parts of your whole vehicle, and that is tires nowadays. So the thing is there that wheel alignment needs to be checked. Of course, again, cost related, but I would say at least every 20,000 kilometers. We used to say at each major service, but like we discussed is nowadays some of our manufacturers, and I'm referring to commercial manufacturers of tractors, their major services go up to almost 70 or 80,000 kilometers. So that's a major jump from the previous or the older 20,000 kilometers. So I would say if you do see a problem, have it checked immediately because you're losing money. Of course, with that, if your wheel alignment on your whole rig or your whole truck tractor trailer combination is out, you're going to lose fuel, because now your truck tractor works harder to pull this skew thing across the road. So that's another saving in there if your wheel alignment is set correctly.
Perfect. One of the comments that we can add to that as well is in a lot of the cases that we look at, the issue of wheel alignment is not only just the effect that it has on your tire and wearing your tire away. It has a major effect on the control and stability of your vehicle. So, we often have cases where we, get these vehicles that come in and the caster is so bad, the inside of the tire is worn till the canvas is showing. And we don't only point that out as well, we also point out that in order for that to happen, that means this vehicle has not been maintained. That means that this vehicle's road holding, its braking, its stability is all poor. We point that out in our reports as well. And Dries, that's exactly the same on a huge, big commercial truck?
Correct, Craig. So normally, and what we see and what we try and teach our customers out there is the cheapest way to do the wheel alignment or check the wheel alignment is the guy comes in with his mobile setup and he checks the front or the steering axle. And it checks it checks the toe settings of the steering axle. There's so many different types of alignment settings on these things. Just for, and I'm sure there's guys on the call as well. A thing like the thrust angle on your drive axles. If your thrust angle and your drive axles are out, you can set the toe on your steer as many times as you like. The truck will keep pushing, or the drive axles will keep pushing your truck into a different direction. So on accelerating, decelerating, you will have a push-pull the whole time, and the driver will, he will somewhere he will lose control.
It's an interesting point that you raise, and it's one of the problems that we see continuously, particularly in the transport industry, where the so-called mechanics and service providers that are being used are, if I want to be really rude about it, backyard and not reputable. And we see things are not being done properly. And Dries, I think you can validate this. You operate with us on the FleetWatch, Bridgestone, BrakeWatch, Tire Watch sessions. And even if wheel alignment is done or brakes are changed, often we see it's not done properly. And that's essentially what you're alluding to, correct?
That is correct, Craig. So rather get a proper person to do the work on your 4.5 million rand worth of rig, instead of just maybe throwing money in the water.
Perfect. Dries, thank you for that. Guys, I'm going to open the floor. Are there any questions, any comments that anyone wants to make while you're raising your hands or typing your questions? I see Kuwani types at the bottom there. Dries, he says, is Nexen, Nexen, a reputable tire? Do you know the brand? Any comment on that?
Craig, I'm not at liberty to discuss a brand's name or say yes, it's good or no, it's bad. Nexen is an imported product. I think I'm not sure from which country it comes from. I haven't had many dealings with Nexen, but just be careful where it comes from, and make sure your supplier is able to carry any warranties or any hiccups that you might have on that tire.
All right. On that point, I can, Yudesh, I'll come to you now as well. On that point, I can just confirm for everybody, there is a process you can go through where you can check with SABS Sands whether a tire is a legally imported tire accepted here. And it refers back to what Dries was saying earlier on. The tires may well be homologated and tested in other countries. They may not be tested here, but because they have certification in other countries, they can be brought in here. They are on a register. There is a register. Yes, we know some of the tires come in and they aren't on that register. They shouldn't be here. But there is a process, and I'm sure if you contact us, we can assist you with that. Yudesh, fire away. You had your hand up there.
Yeah, Greg, just a big thanks to you and Dries for this very informative session. I really enjoyed it. Just a question. Is it better to fill your light vehicles, right, with nitrogen or with normal air? Which one is preferable?
Dries, I'm going to leave that to you. That's your speciality.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that hospital pass, as I say in rugby, Craig. Yeah, Irish, from my point of view, nitrogen is a sales gimmick. So basically, there where you are now, I'm not sure if you're sitting outside or wherever, but there where you're sitting now, the air that you breathe is 70% nitrogen. So why do you want to go and pay 300 Rand or whatever per tire to have it filled with nitrogen when the air that you breathe is almost 70% nitrogen? So the towers that they pump it through, it's got a filter that basically scrubs the nitrogen or scrubs the air to have it nitrogen. Now, I'm not going to take a long time, but basically when you fit the tire onto the rim, the container is now sealed. So the first basically 20 kPa of air going in, your bead is seated onto the rim. Inside that tire now, there's already 70% nitrogen with an air mixture or with a what you call it now, oxygen mixture in. Now the guy comes and he keeps on inflating with nitrogen. Your nitrogen oxygen mixture will stay the same. You can do whatever you want. The only way to get pure nitrogen in your tire is to inflate and fit your tire in a vacuum. So I hope that answers your question.
Yep. Thank you very much for that guidance there.
All right. You're on mute again, Craig.
Okay, a couple of the questions. It was asked about all the meanings on the tires. Modise, we're not going to go into that now, but suffice to say that all of the numbers and the lettering on the side of the tires are very specific. They give you the manufacturer's name, the type of tire, the size of the tire, how to find what regulation it's built under, the specifications. But give us a shout. You can drop me an email directly or Dries an email, and we will assist you with that if that's an issue. I think it's Saad Naidu. Is it advisable for tires to have the same pattern on the same axle on commercial vehicles? Is there an allowable difference on tread breadths on tires on the same axle of commercial tires? Dries, I'll leave that to you. Same tread patterns, different sizes or not?
All right. So basically on your side on the same axle, for instance, your steering axle, yes. Put the same patterns on your steering axles. That goes for commercial and consumer type of vehicles. The reason for that is if there's different tread patterns, the one will have more grip, the other one will have less grip because of the pattern designs. Even going through water or driving in the rain, the one will have more and the one will have less. If you then apply brakes, you might have the one grip more and it will throw your vehicle to the one side. Then coming to the same size, yes, the same axle needs to have the same tire size on it. That goes the same as with the tread pattern. One will grip more. The rolling circumference of the one is more than the other one, so it will have an impact on your control of the vehicle.
And further to that as well, the question was also on tread depth, which I can comment on because I can tell you firsthand, we published a research paper on exactly this issue. We had tires inflated, deflated, different tread depths. So yes, different tread depths to a substantial difference, more than usually about 2 or 3 millimeters, does have an effect for the exact same reason that Dries is saying now. It's your stability, your control, the ability to dissipate water, that kind of thing. So yes, guys, in a nutshell, the takeaway from that, try and keep them the same tread patterns, same size, same conditions. And in effect, That is why Dries will tell you it's common thing to say, rotate the tires, balance the tires, check them. Right. Lawrence asks, he says, to be clear, it's illegal to have retread tires on a steer axle. Yes, Lawrence, that's what we said is, in essence, it doesn't say that in those words. If you read the act doesn't say that. It's what's the word? It's mum on that. But all the manufacturers will tell you, you cannot put retreads on a steer axle. Absolutely. JB Erasmus, does compound hard or soft of the tire have an effect on the handling and stopping distance? Dries, I'm sure you'll confirm. I can confirm that from our testing and our published research.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yes, it does.
Yes.
100%. There's no question with that, and that obviously that all falls within reasonability. You know, are you talking about a soft compound tire like something you would use on a racing track, which is completely different to something that you would use on the road? But yes, it in effect it does. There was a question I heard about a product called Puncture Safe. It's a liquid that you put in your tire. It seals in case you have a puncture. Dries, your comments on these kinds of products? There's many of them.
All right, so there's a lot of these products on there. There was one guy that started a company, I think a year or so ago, just when these nails and things hijackings came about. We haven't tested them yet. The only thing is that I can say from a manufacturer's point of view, before you put this stuff into the tire, just make sure that at least this product, it's not a water-based product. There needs to be a rubber base or rubber compound in this product. If it's water soluble or chemical based, it will eat away at your inner liner of the tire, again making your tire unsafe. Water-based products, if you do get a puncture, the water, it will stop your leakage maybe, but that water inside that product will eat away then at just exposed steel cords, again making it unsafe. So just make sure with your tire provider that they do carry some sort of warranty on these types of products.
It's an interesting point because I know for my mountain biking, Dries, and I know you ride a bit as well, we do use that in our tires, and it is quite effective. But I suppose it's a different thing on a massive big vehicle and high speeds and those kinds of temperatures. So interesting point. We'd nice to see some results on some tests on that. I'll have a look and see if we can find some research on that. There was a question. Yes,
sorry, Craig, yeah? Just quickly. We basically only carry guarantees on those if it's fitted onto slow-moving earth mover, farming implements, as well as waste vehicles. So those machines that work on a waste dump, those are basically the only type of tires we carry a warranty on those products. The rest, commercial consumer vehicles, we do not carry the warranty further, if that's noted in the tire.
Great. Commandant, I see your question there on changing from a 265/17 to a 70, and you were asking about tire pressures. I think it's a bit difficult for us to go into that now, but Dries is a guru on this, and there are quite a few other people in the field that are specialists on that. Drop us an email. Dries can have a look at it and chat with you about that. Then the question came, why are Mari biscuits still legal? I often see people with it on the vehicle doing 120 k's an hour. Valid point. The point here, Dries and I, and again, you can comment, but these tires are legal because they are being used and meant to be there as a space saver and to reduce weight, and they are only meant to be used short distance at 80 k an hour speed. But I do agree we do see them a lot on the road where they shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, and just for interest sake, those tires, like you say, there's actually a sticker on those rims as well, which in your case study, the sticker was removed, but 80 k's an hour, and for short distances until you get to a safe place, and it's the same with some of the other run flat technologies as well. An interesting fact on those Mari biscuits, they need to be inflated to 450 to 500 kPa.
Interesting. But that is all on the tire. So as long as you're complying and adhering to what is on that tire, you should be fine.
Yep, correct.
Great stuff, Dries. I can't thank you enough. Guys, just moving on very quickly onto the presentation. I have supplied extensive listing of reading for you. You can see there are some 56 different references there. In particular, you'll see the ones I've highlighted in yellow are 3 very, very good reading and reference books. So if you are interested in this field and want something to reference to and to read that are by proper tire engineers, top of their game, those are very good references. But happy reading all of that. There's 56 of them there. You can choose that for yourself. Dries, thank you once again. To everybody that was in attendance, I hope there's been some takeaway and some learning for you. Dries and I will be online for a little while. If you want to chat with us some more, or if you want to open your mics and have a conversation with us, please feel free. Otherwise, we will see you at the next session, which we will notify you all of again. Thank you, Dries.
Thank you very much, Craig. I'll hang around for a couple of minutes.
You back to work for the rest of the day, Dries?
Yes, yeah. No, it's work until just after 4. So, but yeah, my day normally starts at 6. So.
Well, good for you. Guys, if you put your hand up or you want to ask a question, just open your mic and ask a question. Don't be shy. We all here. We all talk to each other.
Greg, Chris, I've been driving my car, lost signal for a while there. Thank you to Mnet, whoever does that thing again. But what a brilliant session. What an informative session from both of you, commenting each other. You were backing each other. You were, it was just the most amazing session. So informative. I must compliment both of you.
Thank you, my uncle.
But coming from you, Patrick, that means a lot to us. I think you've been around for about 700 years now.
700 and a half, 11, me and Zuma, 11, listen carefully. I can't compliment you guys enough. There was just so much information there. There was just so much knowledge being imparted. Just brilliant. I'm enthusing you, man. I've stopped just to make this comment, yeah.
It's interesting because, there's the days you only learn when you get older. It says sometimes you need to sit at the feet of your elders and listen for a bit. And I think with Dries's work that he does every day, I think he's lost count of, the things he can point out and he can say at the foremost of it. Aidan, I see you had your hand up. Fire away. Take yourself off mute. Ask a comment.
Okay, great. Thanks, Craig, and thanks, Tracy. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get in early enough. I really battled to connect, and it's only because of location. I'm out in Langebaan today, so the connection wasn't great, but awesome presentation. Loved it. Thank you very much for the add-on stuff that you're providing. Invaluable. I just wanted to say thank you very much to both.
Absolute pleasure. Vishay Hariram, fire away. You've got your hand up there. France, Kobetsa, France, fire away.
Really learned a lot, especially people from the Free State who are driving on the gravel roads and stuff. I've really learned a lot. And then my follow-up question would be, are we going to get some CPD points for attending this course?
Yes, Frans, you get a single CPD point from SIOSH if you're a member of SIOSH. So all you do is just drop them an email and notify them that you attended. And
no, I came to see you Wednesday, but I spoke to Brandon and we're going to put the lock on that door now.
Sorry, ma'am, can you put yourself on mute there, please?
The control of the key, so we're going to see who's going to be the missing people. Yeah.
Maybe mute from your side.
Yeah, I've muted it from my side. Yeah, Franz, so just get a hold of Sayash. They will give you your credited points. You just need to drop them an email as normal. Tell them when you were in the meeting, the date. It is listed with them. Thank you very much for that. Right, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Can I just say something, Craig?
Fire away,
Could I
Pat.
just say something
Fire
on
away.
that last? And I take it that's one of those a question. And please, I'm not knocking the man who asked the question, but it really sometimes riles me that there's so little knowledge in this industry, and we see it on our exercises like brake and tire watch, and I ride next to trucks every day and look at their tires. There's so much ignorance and actual stupidity in this industry when it comes to roadworthiness of vehicles and especially tires. And I think the training that you provided, people must stop looking at some kind of a kickback they can get from, I don't know, CETA, TITA, whatever the heck it is, and go for the training, because that's what we need in this country. The refunds are secondary. You can't refund a life. And your case studies you showed there, in the one, I think it was 6 kids, and that's when my signal broke. 6 kids killed, or 6 people killed. Hell, what kind of a refund have those families got? Nothing. Don't look for the refund. Look for knowledge. And please, I'm not knocking the man who said that. It just irks me sometimes that there's always going to be a payback, on training. And it's just crazy in my eyes. Go for the training to improve your knowledge, improve road safety, improve your operations, improve your bottom lines, improve everything. And then you will get more money from that you will from any kickback from CETA, MITA, or whatever that organization is. Sorry, man, I just had to let go there.
No, it's all good. It's all good, Pat. I think as well, Andries, you may attest to this. If any of you heard my recent comments on the radio for the interview, one of the issues here is the standard of our driver training in South Africa is very, very poor. And one of the upgrades that we need is that there needs to be a little bit more, and we understand not everybody is technical, but there certainly needs to be a lot more effort put into people understanding at least a little bit more about their tires and the technical abilities of their vehicles. I mean, just as an example, you go and buy a modern car nowadays, it has full automatic driving. The sales rep is not going to take you out and teach you and show you how that automatic driving works. The sales reps don't care. He just wants to make his money. That vehicle has got so much more potential and gadgets and things, and the sales reps don't even know how those things work. So Patrick, yes, in comment to what you're saying is, my opinion is a lot of that should come in at the grassroots level of learner's license and driver's license.
Couldn't agree with you more, but it's not. And that is where it should be. You're 100% correct. There's no training. What training in this industry? It used to be a culture of training. Now it's not. It's gone. And I promise everyone who's listening here, whatever, that you go for best practice as spelled out by Driss and Craig in this type of informative session, and you get your tires cut. You will make more money than you will ever make from any type of a feedback from some type of organization that says, we're going to pay you to train. Pay yourself to train, man. Pay yourself to train. That you'll make lots more money that way. But training is a lone joke in this industry. It used to be a culture. It's no longer.
Thank you, Patrick. Valid points.
I'm going to keep that.
Thank you, Patrick. We know you're strongly opinionated, but it all comes from a good place and a lot of experience. So we love it and we appreciate it and we understand it. Driss, closing comment from you, and then I'm going to have to log off.
Yeah, thanks for the session, Craig. I appreciate roping me in here. But in closing, basically, maintenance. Get reputable staff, get reputable people to look after your assets. That's basically in final, and do an audit on them. Don't trust their word, don't trust their documents. I've seen it, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirts. I still got the blisters on my hands working tools myself. That's the only thing. Make sure that they do their job, what they get paid for, but get proper guys.
Cannot say anymore. You've hit the nail on the head. Thank you for everybody. Be safe, travel safe. Remember, be kind to your fellow human being, and let's help everybody and each other more than we do. Let's make the world a nicer, kinder place. Be safe, everybody. See you at the next session.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Pat. Drive safe.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Dries. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye. Vishay Hariram, if you're still there, I do see your question. Technically, there is no shelf life on a tire. It goes to do with the condition, except the manufacturers do generally say the tire should not be older than 3 years, but by law, there is no actual shelf life. It isn't written in the Act, and it isn't specified by the manufacturer. It's just a guideline. If anybody's here that's asking, I see there is also a question as to whether it will be available. The presentation, yes, Eloise will be sending it to each and every single person that was registered. So you will receive it.